All right, welcome to the Friday Fact, the Friday Frequently Asked Questions show about college stuff. I'm Andy Lockwood. This is Pearl Lockwood. Hello,
Hi.
Pearl.
Hi, Andy.
This is the second start after a brief false start where we mistakenly streamed this show to our private clients. But this show is really for everyone who has any type of college financial aid, college admissions, 529, FAFSA, CSS profile, any of those types of questions. We've been getting a bunch of these during the week, and if you have any of these questions, please feel free to comment on the right below this video.
Comment with your question.
Or you can make comments
Or
too.
just a comment.
Thank you. Please like the post. Please like the page. Please share it with anyone that you think might benefit from this information. So all you missed if you were not part of our private clients is a bunch of banter where I was ragging on Pearl and she was returning the favor. So why don't we get... you started talking about these, I guess, I don't know what you called it, but the SPAS quotient. Now, this is a very high intensity time of year.
Right.
And with forms going in and questions and all that. So talk about that while I make sure that we're doing this right.
Right. So you just started by asking me about the stress level, and then I started thinking, well, it is pretty high, and it's kind of growing, and you feel it, and the tension in the air. And then I reflected on, well, what are people freaking out about? And some of what they're kind of uptight about now is finalizing their college list and the commitments of early action or early decision and readiness for those things and application readiness to make those commitments of early action or early decision. We've had a couple of people this week say, I'm really considering applying early decision. And of course, we give our spiel on our philosophy on what advantages and disadvantages applying early decision have. And I think Larry touched on this last time. Did he want to know more about this, the early decision question? Anyhow.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we should talk about it because there are two different and sometimes opposing considerations. There's the financial aid eligibility and financial aid, what do you give up by applying early decision, and the commitment, and what is the commitment, and then the binding, and then the increasing your chances of admission by applying early decision. So there's the admissions consideration and the financial aid consideration.
So why don't you talk about the financial aid consideration first, and I'll handle the admissions consideration.
Okay.
Because we're a team.
Because we are. Okay, so if you are considering early decision and you submit your application and you...
Well, what is early decision?
Early decision is binding. You are, so to speak, committing as an under 18-year-old who technically as a lawyer not really able to commit, but nonetheless it's a contract between the student and the school that they are applying early decision to, that if an admissions, if they are granted an admissions decision of yes, then that student is obligated to go there and tell any other school that they've applied to, or withdraw their application from any other school that they've applied to. However...
Was that the short version?
No. Andy's also here to keep me from being too
is it
long.
ever the short version?
No. I got to work on my brevity.
It's charming.
I'm going to work on it.
You have plenty of other endearing qualities.
Thanks.
Yep.
Keeping it short.
So talk about the financial aid impact in 3 sentences or less.
You, in not getting financial aid awards from any other school, because if you get in and therefore withdraw your applications from other places you might have been applying to, you do not have competing award letters potentially to negotiate with the school you do want to go to and better your award at that school.
Yes. So the other way to look at it is that colleges are businesses, and like any business, they want the most money they can get out of you. This is a broad generalization, but I think even if you find this to be cynical, you should still at least consider this explanation in the back of your mind. So what that means is they won't always give their highest and best offers. And notwithstanding, I should add, all of the language and other marketing rhetoric that's all over their websites and all over their brochures and things like that, where they claim that they brag about how much money they give out and how they give a full fair award to everyone and so on and so forth. But if that were the case, then we wouldn't be able to take initial awards and ask for more and then get crazy results. So last night,
year after year after year.
Last night I was doing a workshop in Bayside, Queens, where we had north of 7 people.
Where we met.
Not at the workshop.
Okay.
Not at the Knights of Columbus.
No, never. I don't think I've ever been
a little
there.
dirty there too. Anyway, so I was passing around before and after examples of awards where we had negotiated an offer from USC from $23,000 to $53,000, and that's an annual number, or Harvard from 0 to close to $40,000. And NYU from 0 to $25,000 also per year. All those examples are per year. So what we're saying is that you should always try to be able to negotiate, and it helps to have different arrows in your quiver, so to speak, to be able to augment your chances of success. One of those big arrows is other offers from competing schools, and if you apply early decision, then you take that away. You don't have that because you don't, like Pearl said, you don't have any other offers. From an admissions standpoint, yes, early decision helps your chances of getting in, but if you take a closer look at what's behind the statistics, it's pretty obvious that it does not help your chances of getting in as much as you or parents might think. It's okay to listen. Think. Is it like every other word? Are you mouthing my words?
No.
Are you?
Is
she mouthing my words?
No, I don't do
You ever
that.
have those conversations with someone?
Okay, maybe some of the people who are watching do this. Don't insult anybody.
This is what I mean. Say something to me.
I don't think you should be insulting anybody right now. Lots of you out there may do this, and that's okay.
Okay. Do you ever notice that when people process by moving their lips? That's one of our pet peeves. My pet peeves, our pet peeves. I'm sorry. And our kids love that too. Anyway, so the thing about early decision is that there's a lot of seamlessly going back in there. There's a lot of self-selectivity in those statistics. And what I mean by that is you have people who are recruited to go to that particular college, meaning maybe they're athletes, maybe they're legacies, maybe they've had someone go out on a limb for them, like a trustee or a senator or a judge or something like that. There's a whole group of self-selected people who apply early decision because they need to, or they're obligated to do that. So if you're not in one of those special categories and you're applying early decision, you get lumped into that broader early decision statistic, but it's really not. It's kind of a false statistic. So it does. Listen, I'm not going to say it doesn't help your chances of getting in. And I think a lot of times when we're sort of Monday morning quarterbacking, like we do every year, the results of all of our clients from the previous year, and some kids don't get into certain schools that they felt they should have, and they were contemplating going early decision, like to Cornell, for example. They seem to really weight early decision very heavily. Then that can be the deciding factor. It really can be. But what you personally have to weigh is, okay, well, if I go early decision, I know my chances of getting in are going to be better somewhat, but my chances of getting the most money that I'm able to get are definitely lower. So it's a balancing act, and it's not an easy one to be able to figure out.
Correct. Not dissimilar
That's
to
correct.
the presidential election.
What? Okay. All right. So.
How to keep it relevant.
Yes. All right. Please like, comment, and share even our comments. And introduce yourselves. Let us know your let's get right.
And you can give us a angry face.
Mad face. Yeah, I like those. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some questions that actually came up. So that was a big one, and now I feel like we're not going to have nearly enough time to do all these. So here was a question from Amy who asked about the 529 held in the name of a grandparent. So why don't you just discuss what that. Let me just frame it a little bit better.
Sure.
So I think I didn't take such good notes here. I think the question was, how is a 529 that a grandparent has on behalf of a child, how is that treated on the FAFSA?
Okay, on the FAFSA, the grandparent's 529, or the grandparent owner of the 529 on behalf of the grandchild student, does not come into play anywhere on the FAFSA because the 529 on the FAFSA is treated as a parent asset. See, they do not distinguish as between the children. Let's say you have 3 kids and one of those kids is a student. It's the total of the 529 owned by the parents that go into the FAFSA in terms of 529 money. However,
actually, I should have backed up. So if you're not initiated, the 529 is a college savings plan named after that section of the IRS code, and they're called 529s. So the question is, a 529 typically is owned by a parent on behalf of the kid. So it's like a custodian and beneficiary type of relationship.
But a special type for higher education.
Yeah. And for grandparents, you know, they're also able to take out 529, open 529 accounts for their kids. So the question is,
right,
how's that treated, and are they good? I actually got that was a question I got last night too. Is 529 good or bad? So you finish your question, and then I'll try to add to it.
Okay.
If I can.
Am I moving on to the CSS profile, or okay? So the grandparents' ownership of that 529 does not come into play in any case on the FAFSA,
Or does it?
Until.
What's with the pointing?
Unless and until that grandparent actually sends that money over to the student's college.
See, I do too.
At that point, that benefit to the student is actually realized, and at that point, unfortunately, the school, for financial aid purposes, will treat that money, once distributed to that student, as the student asset, which incurs the student's asset. Student income coming from that 529 asset. Sorry. And
maybe I should have melded that a little louder.
And a student's income is penalized from $1 and at a much higher rate than the parent income.
Okay, so the FAFSA asks about parent assets and child assets. That's why the grandparent 529 doesn't appear anywhere. If you're joining us, please like, comment, and share. LCS. Okay.
I did have one last recommendation on that.
But when that money then gets sent to the school, that's where they catch up. So Pearl's recommendation might have been to delay.
Delay, exactly. Wait to use that grandparents' 529 to the last possible year in school when you're hopefully, if you can wait that long, to defray that money being realized by that student for a financial
Okay, next.
purpose.
What about the CSS profile? We gotta go. We gotta go fast.
Sorry. CSS profile. There is a field that asks about, do other people have money, and they can specifically ask, is there a relative other than your parents who...
What's the actual question, do you know?
It varies because each school who is on the CSS profile has the opportunity to ask its own and phrase its own questions to the student that's applying to that school. So sometimes there will be 2 similar questions about a topic, and maybe it's often before somebody out there realizes that are these really all coming from the same place. Now, different colleges ask different questions, and sometimes it's asked that way. Is there a relative, is there any other relative out there who has money for you? Or then it may be actually more specific. Were 529 accounts set up by someone other than your parents?
Sneaky CSS profile.
Yes, it's gotten sneakier.
I feel like it has,
I think they have some lawyers who are good with words working on it.
Pearl practiced law.
Yes, I did.
So we met in law school.
Yes.
So all right. So every college in the country takes the federal form, the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. Roughly 270 colleges require an additional form, which is twice as long and much more complicated. We talk about this all the time. You don't need to, if you've seen us on Facebook, then you don't need to hear a whole explanation on that. But if you want more information, just contact us. Okay.
How do people contact us?
You just figure it out.
Okay, great.
Leave a comment. Hello, Larry. Larry Cohen joined.
Hi, Larry.
Okay. See, we're reading comments. Oh, that was just a like. Okay. So hopefully Larry heard you answering his question from last week.
Well, I'm actually going to just bring up another thing that Larry and I talked about this week. And that is on the FAFSA. This came up a few times this week, so you weren't alone. when you are submitting the FAFSA system only permits you to submit to 10 schools at a time. And what you would need to do if you had 23 schools on your list, you would submit to the first 10, and
23 is
I
excessive.
would do it according to your earliest priority financial aid deadlines.
Sweet mother of God, 23?
Not him.
Well,
I'm just giving an example.
fine.
Yes, please. Are you kidding? I've been in the 30s.
Don't have to brag about it.
Yeah. Anyhow, so you would wait about 2 to 3 days after the submission of the first 10 to get you get a confirmation immediately, but it takes 2 to 3 days for the FAFSA system to process the FAFSA, and then it will say completed processing. At that point, you go back into the already completed processing FAFSA, and you can go in, you would take away the 10 schools you had there originally. Don't worry, nothing happens to prior submissions when you do this. And you populate the next 10 schools on your list, and you submit it. And that will take another 2 to 3 days to process. And then you would go back in, and you would just take off, if you had 3 schools left to submit, take off 3 schools, add those in, submit it, and
Sounds like they need to stay organized.
you need to stay organized.
All right,
That's
so just
correct.
looking over some of the comments from last show, I see that we answered a lot of these. So
Okay.
Paula Storetta, we'd gone back and forth with Pam Mediavilla, who's actually a client.
Hi.
Larry also. Maria Butita had asked a question about second homes, which we answered. Joanne Coer-Zulo said something like, I can't wait to go to Central Catholic meeting with some knowledge right now. Great, I'm glad we helped you.
Yeah.
Pam Tucker Robbins, if you don't fill out the FAFSA, will it hurt your chances of getting merit-based scholarships? We get that question so much.
Maybe.
Answer that.
The answer
Oh,
is
you're answering
maybe.
it.
I am answering it. I can't help myself. Every school, there's some uniformity in schools, and I would say yes, they all require the FAFSA if you're seeking aid. But after that, how each school handles financial aid awards and how its formulas and what percentage of need it meets and what information it uses to determine need varies at each school. And this is one of the things that also varies.
So specifically, just off the top of our heads, Fordham requires all the forms if you want merit money. So does NYU. You thought Duke did, I think, at one
Yes,
point?
Duke does, because I've
Okay.
had several. Yes, so you
out.
can
You gotta
check it out and check on each school. Unfortunately, this morning someone said, "Well, how do I know how much?" Wasn't even the how much need will a school meet, but how do I know what each school's real cost of attendance is? Is there any like central place I could
Yeah.
find it,
Yeah.
or like do I have to really look up each school's website? I'm like, you have to look on each school's website
Right. Well, the bad
and
news.
what they require.
The bad
Yeah.
news, good news is that most of them are within dollars of each other, and they're all really expensive.
Right.
So it gets to a point where you're like, it doesn't matter. I think, but
A lot, and a lot.
There are places like the College Board and other sites that publish information, but it's not as reliable
No.
as each school's own respective site. Okay, let's move on. We've got a lot of other questions here. I don't know how we're going to do this. Because Pearl's hosting a dinner tonight for the football team.
Go Vikings.
So there's a lot of activity upstairs. She's been very busy. Okay, what about? Okay, this was a very interesting one. We had a woman, Judy, who has twins, and she started filling out the forms, or one of the twins did, and then when she went to log back in, she had the other kid's FSA ID. So talk about the FSA ID and how do you fix something like that?
Okay, well, for some reason, people who have obtained their own FSA IDs.
Well, what is it first?
Okay, the FSA ID replaced the FAFSA PIN system.
What is it?
It's like your social security number, and it is used so that you can electronically sign the FAFSA as well as log into the federal loan site.
Is it a federal student aid identification?
It is. Oh, you want to be like, what does the acronym stand
Well,
for?
sometimes that helps you understand it.
Yes, it
'Cause There's
does.
so many acronyms.
Yes, there are.
SMA, so many acronyms.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so everybody has their own FSAID username and password.
Not just students?
Not just students, because your parent, at least one parent, needs to electronically sign the FAFSA along with the student in order to successfully submit it.
So the parent has the FSA ID and a student has an FSA ID.
Correct.
There's no more PIN.
No more PIN.
PIN is dead.
PIN is dead.
Okay. So what do you do if you switch them up and like?
So if you switch them up, or you don't remember and all that, then you go to the FSAID site,
which is
itself. It's like FSAID.gov, I believe, some form of that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go on, you have an option. It says Edit My FSAID or Create My FSAID. So you would click on the Edit My FSAID tab, and then you would populate your information, and there is a place, I forgot my this or my that, and if you would set it up with your email address, it's going to shoot you either a code or give you your secret questions, or when you had set it up, and you answer those, and then that enables you to go into your actual substantive FSAID data and correct it, change it. I have had to do this because it happens every single year, and I cannot believe it. I find that the tax return has an incorrect birth date or an incorrect digit on the Social Security number. There is some typo.
Not the same tax return.
Not on the same tax return. If you have both of those,
you're not saying every year you see the same tax return.
No, every single year I see this, at least with different clients. Correct. Different accountants, different clients. A mistake on either your birth date or your Social Security number, stuff that matters.
Which could have been that way for years.
Correct. And yeah, every year I have to be the bearer of bad news. I hate to say it, your birth date's wrong. So then I will, let's say, in reliance upon a tax return, silly me, obtain the ID, and then I have to go in and correct it. And it's simple enough to do, but
stressful. If you have a lot of things that you're doing yourself, it's a pain in the butt.
And again, all of their sites are just not that easy to navigate.
Right.
And
so obviously, if you want help with your stuff, we can do that. Just leave us a comment here, call the office. But I thought I'd throw that in, that brief commercial message. Okay, so that's how you fix that. All right, let me go into this one. This is a little bit of a narrative here. Hi, I'd like to thank you for posting so many incredibly helpful videos. This is from Morgan. Thank you for saying that, and you're welcome. My son's a rising high school senior looking at several colleges in the Northeast. The process is a bit daunting, to say the least, and I have a few questions about the CSS profile, if I may. You may. I'm a single mom, divorced for 17 years. I've completed the FAFSA and have the CSS profile mostly completed. Number one, they asked for a list of all my debt. Having 2 car loans, both cars listed in my name, and fairly substantial credit card debt, do I have to disclose the total amount of credit card debt? Do financial aid offices check my credit? I do have a pretty good credit score of 750, but I don't necessarily want to share my credit card debt if it's not really necessary. Number 2, and I will break these down for you. Number 2, my EFC is $15,000, which seems high to me based off my salary. What amount is recommended for the question, what do you expect to pay for college next year? Thanks again for providing wonderful videos for people like myself. They've been extremely helpful. Kindly, Morgan, last name with help. That's actually her last name with help. That's a joke. So here we go. They asked, let me break this down for you, Pearl Lockwood. Number 1, they asked me to list all my debt, having 2 cars and fairly substantial credit card debt. Do I have to disclose the total amount of credit card debt? So what I want to know is the answer to your question, what colleges ask this, and what are the implications, and why are they asking this?
Well, they want to know.
And not in that order. Does she have to does she have to tell all the credit card debt, or can she lie?
Well, I don't recommend lying.
Okay, next question.
If you are looking for consideration from the school
question.
that's asking
Fine.
that question, the answer is yes.
Okay. Do financial aid offices check my credit?
Yes. Your credit...
Financial aid offices check credit?
Financial aid offices do not check them. However...
So you mean no when you say yes?
Financial aid offices do not check your credit.
Okay.
No.
Focus!
Okay. However...
Focus on the
it's important
triangle.
To
Wait.
Here. Okay,
Wait.
I won't say anything.
Okay. but I don't want to share my credit card debt if it's not really necessary. So my question to you is, why do it's not every school? Why do some schools ask about credit card debt?
Well, to be clear, it is not a direct question on the CSS profile. It is only shown up as a supplemental school question that a particular school is asking.
One school?
I mean, it could be a handful of schools that are asking it. I don't absolutely see it every time.
Right.
However,
but you've seen it multiple times
yeah,
each year.
of course,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay.
There's a handful of schools that ask this
so
question
why are they
every
asking?
year. So they're asking because the schools that are asking that question typically are the more generous schools out there, have greater endowments to give, and they want to have a clearer financial picture all in about you before deciding where it's going to give additional merit money.
Okay, let me give you a fact pattern. Let's say you're applying to an Ivy League school that might ask this question,
Okay.
and you say, I really need money because I don't have a lot of income. And they say, let me see your credit card debt. And you list it. And sometimes they say, what's the total amount and what's the nature of it, right? They ask for details.
Yes.
And let's say that you have put 3 vacations to Rio de Janeiro and Punta Cana and whatever, and you eat out at steakhouses like every 3 weeks. What are they going to think in that case, Pearl Lockwood?
That you're irresponsible, that
You're
you're
making
living
a
high.
choice.
Yeah, you've made a choice of lifestyle, just like people say, it's so unfair when I live in San Francisco, it's so expensive there,
Okay,
but
so don't
that's
get
a
sidetracked.
choice. But
All
it's
right.
a similar thing.
Well,
that is how they
it
do
is and it isn't. I mean, I can definitely argue that just because you live somewhere doesn't mean that's a high. You're living too large, because you might also be living there so you can make the most money you can make.
True.
But if you're spending money on things that are not necessarily
Necessary.
necessities and they're luxuries, I think the way I think about this is, if you were the college and someone's asking you for money, or let's say you have a relative that's asking you for money, aren't you going to be curious about why they need the money and how they're spending their money? If they have a 7 Series BMW and they're spending all sorts of crazy money on stuff that you don't personally spend your money on, that's probably what they're getting at. So okay, so that's that question. All right.
I guess a lot of schools should ask that.
Well, they can ask whatever they want. We've learned.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope they're not listening to this.
I don't
All right, my EFC is $15,000, which seems high to me based off my salary. What amount is recommended for the question, what do you expect to pay for college next year? So that question is on the profile?
Yes, it's on CSS profile, and that is universal. And
Or I think the question is, what can you afford?
the question is, what do you think your parents can afford for a year in school?
How do you answer that question? Pearl Lockwood.
Okay, so philosophically, one is not obligated to pay for their child's going to school. So some parents may be of the philosophy that once you're in high school, once you're out of high school, you're on your own financially. And if you are going to put your heart in your education, you're going to take the loans out, et cetera, and so forth.
So how do you answer the question?
So you can say 0, or
Really?
you can
That's
say...
not a red flag?
It could be a red flag if you have put all this other information, but you could also, there is an opportunity to explain some of your reasons for volunteering a certain figure. You could say 5,000. You could say any figure you want. I personally don't like to volunteer any more than a school might otherwise decide I should pay. So I would be careful about over volunteering the money.
Well, let me say this. Let's say that so this question's on the CSS profile, and it sounds like Morgan had already done the FAFSA and already received
An EFC.
her
Conversational. Go ahead.
already gotten her EFC, Pearl. So
Handy.
should she then use that as a guide for putting down an answer to how much can you afford for college on the profile?
She can.
What would happen if she put down $30,000?
Well, what was her EFC?
$15,000. Were you too busy interrupting me to
That
listen?
is not something I would do, because that is volunteering more than what the federal government determined you and your family can pay for 1 year of college.
I feel like this episode is a little chippy.
Choppy,
No, I feel like
chippy.
yeah, just
See, I think of chippy as like chippy.
That's chipper. Chippy is kind of like a little antagonistic.
Ah,
It's probably me.
probably.
Okay.
I agree.
I love
See?
you.
That's less antagonistic.
I love you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the question of EFC being high or low. So Morgan's not telling us how much she earns. $15,000 for an EFC in a vacuum is pretty low compared to what we see. You know, most of the people that we work with are six-figure earning families, and their EFCs are a lot of them are higher, maybe double or even 3 times that amount. So to have a $15,000 EFC, my guess is that she's making less than $100,000 a year. She might be in the $80,000 to $90,000 range, if I were to hazard a guess. So it doesn't strike me as high in a vacuum. It may feel like it's high because everyone has their own definition or their own feeling about what they can afford. And I had a very interesting conversation this week with a family that kind of blindsided me in the office. We had a phone call scheduled, and they came in, and I'm happy I was there. It was nice to meet with them. They were nice, but I felt badly because I told them I couldn't help them at all, and they had driven, not terribly far to see me, but we got to the point in the conversation where the husband was asking me, so do you think we can qualify for anything? So I said, well, income's very important. Approximately how much do you earn? And he said, well, it's about $550,000-$600,000. And I almost laughed. I was like, are you kidding? I really actually thought he was kidding for a second. And I said, well, you're not going to qualify. And he kind of looked at me like, like he couldn't.
What do you mean?
He just couldn't understand it. And I believe his thinking is that he lives in a pretty expensive area in Long Island. He is surrounded by high income people, many of which earn a multiple of what he earns. I'm guessing he's pretty conservative, lives below his means, doesn't drive a crazy car, and doesn't spend a ton of money on his kids, but he probably saves a lot of money also. And my point is that he felt that he should get some sort of assistance because he just didn't understand the rules, which is which may be your situation also. So everyone has their own definition, but in financial aid, what really counts is the formula, which is heavily dependent on something called EFC, which is estimated family contribution, and that is based on your income, your savings, your age, number of children in college at the same time, which a lot of people overlook. Explain. I can't remember who you were telling me about. Oh, someone that you were one of our friends that you were walking with has thought she wasn't going to qualify for any type of aid because she had tried before
with one kid in school.
Right, and then Then tell me the rest of the story.
Well, the rest of the story is, so she now is approaching having 3 children in college at the same time next year, and
her income's about the same.
Yeah, her income is about the same.
As when she didn't qualify.
Exactly. And I said, well, let me give you this example. I said, let's just say, because I'm not going to ask you your income or whatever, but let's just say in the first year you applied for financial aid and your EFC came back at $90,000. Okay.
So, time out. So what that means is that if a school costs $65,000 and you can afford, in the formulas, $90,000, you're not showing any need. It's cost of attendance minus your EFC. So in that case, it's you have less than 0 of an EFC. So let's say everything stays the same.
Right.
In year 2, she were to apply with 2 kids in school.
Right.
What would her EFC be?
Her EFC would be $45,000.
Why?
Because the EFC, your ability to make a certain contribution.
Wait a minute. Because EFC stands for?
Expected family contribution.
Right. So it gets split
between the 2 children.
Right. So
So
with
now
3
if you
kids
have
in
3
school.
kids in school, the EFC is $30,000
So again.
per student.
So again, if the school is $65,000 and now you can contribute only $30,000, you're showing $30,000 worth of need.
Exactly.
Even if you make the same amount of money, have the same savings.
Same everything.
Just you added another 2 kids to the mix.
And she was like,
yeah. And she's
Yeah,
and by the way, she's an accountant. We have
Yep.
tons of accountants as clients and CPAs, and it's
these
just
rules are, it's a particular area.
specialized.
Of expertise, exactly.
Okay.
But,
Good.
yeah.
All right. So we don't have enough time for half of these. I think we'll have to put these off. If you have questions that we didn't answer, that we didn't get to, post them right here. We'll if you're catching this on the replay, I guess the last question we should just talk about is one I got last night. and we get all the time. And my way of thinking about the question is 529 friend or foe? The way it was asked last night was, is the 529 good or bad? Good or evil? And my answer is it depends, because let's say, and I actually talked about this, that the gentleman who came to me who earns $500,000, $600,000, there's no way he could qualify for need-based aid. So in that case, the 529 is great for him because it gives him a deduction, for New York State, depending on where you're watching this. You might have that in your own home state, and you get the favorable tax treatment by having it in there. But for many people whose income does not knock them out of the box, the 529, the question is not whether it's going to count against you or not, it's how much it's going to count against you. And without getting into too much of the gory details, let's say you had $100,000 in a 529, most schools will penalize you $5,600 per 100,000, meaning that they'll reduce your eligibility by $5,600. And then there's a whole bunch of schools that were suspicious that they will penalize you way more than $5,000. They'll penalize you $20,000 or $25,000. Different discussion for a different day. Again, the point is that it's not a question of whether it counts, it's how much it counts against you. So in many cases, and I don't know if that was the conversation that you were having today with, well, they all blend in, but in many cases, we have clients looking at the pros of selling a 529 and sheltering it into an asset, an area that doesn't count against you, but you also have to look at the negatives to see if they're outweighed by the potential positives.
And the school that you're applying to and that you're zeroing in on, because the treatment of that 529 will differ.
There are several moving parts.
Yes. The whole year is a lot of moving parts.
It's just a lot of movement. So I'm just trying to see if there's any comments yet. Not really. Okay, so I think that that's going to be a wrap for this episode. And again, please like, comment, and share. Leave your comments that you want us to answer in the comment box underneath this video. And we'll be back on Tuesday for College Talk Tuesday. That is right here on this page at 12 p.m. Eastern. And every week we also do this show, which is just questions. FACUS Friday, the Friday FAQ. So, Andy Lockwood.
Pearl Lockwood.
We are signing off. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll catch up to you soon. Bye-bye.